You asked what I remember about life in the shtetl. I guess I remember my grandmother, my bubba, and my mother in their store. It was called a monopole, and it had a license to sell liquor. Not a booming business. A little schnapps for the synagogue minion. Wine for Shabbos and Passover, and a little extra for Shmuel, the town beggar. We also sold butter and milk and eggs from our cows and chickens. Bubbe was a smart, tough lady. My mother was just as clever, but she hid it behind a beautiful face. The time I'm talking about, I was almost as tall as she was. My father was tall. He was the tallest man in the village. But when my mother spoke, he listened, or else he'd get an earful. Oh, what else do I remember? Give me a minute. It was such a long time ago. I remember best the chestnut trees. Along both sides of the road in our little village, big, beautiful, leafy chestnut trees lined both sides. In our little village, just 10 miles west of Minsk. As kids, we would run down the road and beat on the branches with sticks, and the chestnuts would come down like hail. We would gather them up in baskets and build a fire, and then we would roast them and eat them until we couldn't eat anymore. Bobby and Mother, they would gather them by the bucket and soak them in sweet wine for weeks. And then they would roast them until they exploded, burst open. And then they bottled them and doled them out as treats through the long, cold winter. You ask if I was poor. I had a roof over my head, I had clothes to wear, I had plenty enough to eat. Thinking back, our little village was nothing more than a dirt road with old wooden houses and farms that could hardly grow weeds. But we had something special. We had our town, our friends, our rabbi, our little synagogue by the river. On the other hand, Jews always have an on the other hand. There was always something to remind us we had to be careful. My grandfather, my Zadie, would point at the church on the hill and he would say, "They're watching us." I didn't understand what he meant. So I did like all boys do. I played games. I floated paper boats on the river to faraway lands, to that magical place called America. My brother, little Maxwell, he was too small to play by the water. Mother kept him in the house or in the shop. My father and my grandfather were carpenters. Jewish carpenters. They repaired barns and roofs, and they worked in the church. They built the altar, they repaired the walls, they fixed the roof, and the priest always paid them promptly. And they saved every ruble. One day, the rabbi came pounding on the door. Yahil ben Shlomo! What you can do for the priest, you can do for your rabbi. Our poor synagogue's door is cracked and warped. Come, the winter will freeze to death. Make me a new door. The synagogue's money is just as good as the church's rubles. My Zadie wouldn't take the money. He went out and he bought a piece of oak from his own pocket. And he worked on it for 2 months. He carved a menorah and 2 lions of Judah. Every year at Tu B'Shvat he would coat it with linseed oil until it glowed as if it had a soul. He said it was his atonement for working at the church. In the summer, our village was patrolled by a Russian police captain. His name was, it started with Kravchenko. Captain Kravchenko. He rode a beautiful black horse that pranced like a dancer. He had shiny black boots and a blue and gray uniform with gold braid. And he had a huge steel saber that he strapped to his vest. Every day he stopped by my Booba's shop, and she would offer him a glass of vodka or a glass of cherry brandy, a vishniak from my Booba's kitchen, and one of the wine-soaked chestnuts. When he finished eating, Kravchenko would smack his lips, and he would say in Yiddish, "Ah, Machaya, how delicious!" Yiddish. He was our friend and protector. He would sit on the front steps with Papa, and they would talk about the crops and the weather, and if the local commandant was paying his men on time. On Sundays, he brought his fishing pole, and Papa and Kravchenko and I would go sit on the riverbank, and we would fish in the summer sun. I don't know why, but he took a liking to me. Well, I know why. My Zadie and Booba gave him free drinks. Anyway, we would sit on the bank, and he would flick his fingernail against the edge of the sword, and it would ring like a bell. He was the symbol of authority. He was the real Russia. People took their hats off and bowed when he passed by. Even my father nodded, though my father was taller than Kravchenko. My papa had blue eyes. They smiled when he was happy. But when he was angry, they would pierce a razor. But then one day my childhood changed. No more paper boats, no more playing with my friends, no more chestnuts. Kravchenko came to town, and he took my father aside and he said, "In a few days, there's going to be a little commotion in the village. A little dust-up." "But why?" my father asked. Nobody makes trouble. We're peaceful folk. I have my orders from my commandant, Arielib. He called my father by name. Do you want me to get in trouble with my commandant? And he rode off, as if he just delivered the mail. A few days later, we hear the clatter of horses' hooves on the road coming towards us. Everybody runs inside and bolts the door and closes the shutter. We hid in the back room of the store, except for my papa. He was at the front, peering through the shutters. The mounted police, they rode down the street swinging their swords and smashing windows, and at their lead was our friend and protector, Captain Kravchenko, with his steel saber pointed straight at my Zadie's beautiful door, where my father ran out, and he leapt up, and with one hand he pulled Kravchenko into the dust, and he picked up his sword and he waved it about. Who will be first? Who will be first? Well, their captain was lying in the dirt. A madman waved a sword. The police panicked and fled. When the last horse disappeared, my father picked up Kravchenko and said to him, "You did your job. I did my job. And if your commandant wants to know what happened, he should read about the Maccabees." And then he broke the sword in half over his knee and dropped it in the dirt. The next day, my papa packed and left for America. Nobody ever saw Kravchenko again, and the mounted police never came back. A year passed, and then a letter from my father in America with our passage money. We left the shtetl. I suppose that sword my papa broke in half rusted away into nothing. But I believe if you drive 10 miles west of Minsk and make a right turn, you will still find my Zadie's beautiful door. And along the road, beautiful leafy chestnut